I want to introduce somebody who I love and I really admire as a professional and human being, Gabriela Froes. Well, if you don't know her, she's an ELT teacher and teacher trainer. She has been working with teacher education since 2018. She holds a master's degree in English literature and is finishing her DipTESOL. A lot of hard work if you follow her online. She also holds two C2 certificates. Gabriela has an online business for improving EFL teachers' language awareness, preparing teachers for exams, and developing teaching skills. Well, if you want to find her, she can be found at gabrielafroes.com or on Instagram at Gabriela Froes ELT. Gabi, the floor is yours. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. Good morning. Hello, everyone. I would like to open this talk by saying what a pleasure it is to be part of this event and to thank the organizers, Edu and Tami, for inviting me and giving me this platform to talk about a topic that I really like talking about. For the ones who don't know me, nice to meet you. I've been working with and talking about critical thinking for a really long time. You will notice today that some points of contact between my talk and Taylor's talk from yesterday morning. After all, critical thinking has everything to do with diversity, right? It has to do with recognizing difference, embracing difference, and promoting difference. I would also like to express my sympathy, my empathy for the ones who lost their homes, their personal belongings, their loved ones, their sleep, their peace of mind, and are now trying to go back to work and search for some sort of normality. I would just like to say that we see you, we feel for you, and we will keep helping. And for the ones who are watching me now, please remember that we are educators, which means we need to vote for politicians who embrace educators and who value educators. We need to vote for politicians who embrace education and who value education. In my opinion, only education can change the situation we are in. So I'll begin my talk by proposing an exercise. Let's talk about traveling, a topic that is very present in every EFL classroom. I have never in these 20 years of teaching seen or heard a student say that they don't like traveling. Most people enjoy traveling, right? And whenever we ask a student why they enjoy traveling, they somehow touch on the topic of difference. They enjoy traveling because they want to see different places. They want to learn how those people live, how they lived in the past. They want to experience something that they would not experience had they not left home. There's a Cambridge CPE exam task about traveling that requires that students read an article which says, and I quote, "Travel is, in the end, a heightened state of awareness in which we are receptive, undimmed by familiarity, and ready to be transformed." So I think it would be fair to say that for most of us, this search for a heightened state of awareness, this readiness to be transformed, is an ingrained part of ourselves, right? And going back to the classroom, we can see that students enjoy talking about traveling, which means they enjoy learning about difference. They are not, for the most part, closed to difference. And this has everything to do with the promotion of critical thinking in the classroom. And it has a lot to do with why we cannot restrict these practices to children and young teenagers. When we teach adults, especially when we teach advanced levels of English, we need critical thinking to be an integral part of our lessons, of our practice. Let's consider the CEFR descriptors. The Common European Framework of Reference describes the competencies that a learner needs to demonstrate in order to be considered of a certain level, right? I work with exam preparation of C1 and C2 level proficiency exams. And the C levels, as I often explain to my students, they are levels of the abstract, of complex thinking. I took these descriptors from the CEFR website. They have a long list of what is expected of learners of all levels. Let's think of receptive skills first. This is what they describe for C1 and C2 levels. For C1 level, can understand enough to follow extended discourse on abstract and complex topics beyond their own field. And for C2, can understand virtually all types of texts, including abstract, structurally complex, or highly colloquial literary and non-literary writings. As we can see, complex thinking is required. Comprehension of abstract ideas is required. I'm now going to show you what is expected in terms of production, but you can already take a guess, right? For C1 levels, can give clear, detailed descriptions and presentations on complex subjects, integrating sub-themes, developing particular points, and rounding off with an appropriate conclusion. And then for C2 levels, can argue a case on a complex issue, formulating points precisely and employing emphasis effectively. These are only a few in a long list of descriptors. Students who are not able to demonstrate these competences rarely get a pass at a proficiency exam. What is my point here? If we want students to reach higher levels of comprehension and production in a language, then making sure they reach higher levels of abstract, complex thinking is part of our job. And how do you do that, right? How do you teach a person, or yet an adult, which is the age range I work with, how to think? When we live in a country where thinking has become an act of rebellion. And I think as educators, we need to embrace this rebelliousness. So let's talk a little bit about what critical thinking is. I took this from a blog. Critical thinking is the process our minds go through when we actively compare ideas, evaluate, and analyze information, and come up with sound conclusions or judgments based on the thought process we have completed. Critical thinking is the ability to think logically, clearly, independently. It helps us solve problems. It exercises our brains. Wouldn't you say this is an important set of skills to have? So let us then think about why we should teach critical thinking in the classroom. According to the University of People in California website, having critical thinking skills is important because they, one, are universal, which means they are not specific of any field and hence will always be relevant, regardless of where you go or what you do. They are crucial for the economy. If we consider that critical thinking is necessary for technology, for innovation, for progress, given that we live in a capitalist world, then the more complex thinkers we have, the better. They help promote creativity because as we become more able to solve problems and think of solutions, we also become more creative with these solutions and with these problems. They encourage self-reflection because when we're able to think critically about our problems and our reality, we tend to move towards a more meaningful life. And then we're better able to understand our own thoughts, our own feelings, our own actions. And finally, they are the basis of science and democracy. Because theories need to be backed up with knowledge, with reasoning. And in order for a society to effectively function, citizens need to establish opinions and be able to criticize each other's opinions. So why is it important to teach critical thinking, even if you work with adults, even if you work with exam preparation, for instance? Critical thinking allows us to methodically resolve issues, to filter our own unnecessary, irrelevant ideas, to comprehend the logical reasoning behind concepts, to identify logical gaps in reasonings, to establish strong arguments, and to analyze other people's arguments. It gives us the ability to defend ourselves and to defend our ideas. And this is precisely why so many people in positions of power do not want the general population to develop these skills. Critical thinking is an open-minded, curious, I don't know, reflective individual, a person who is willing to adapt their viewpoints based on new information. And the critical thinker does not follow anything or anyone without questioning. We should also remember, if I haven't convinced you yet, that critical thinking is required in higher education. That critical thinking is required in most top-paying jobs. Do you see where I'm getting at? Conversely, let's see what non-critical thinkers end up doing. According to Vincent Ruggiero, in this book, The Art of Thinking, non-critical thinkers, they tend to see a limited number of perspectives, sometimes just one, to take the first approach that occurs to them without questioning, to judge quickly, sometimes too quickly and not critically. They fail to listen actively. They think their ideas are the best and all the others are less. They resist change and they think in stereotypes, which gives room for intolerance. We can see the results of having too many non-critical thinkers when we live in a world in which other non-critical thinkers are elected everywhere, all the time. Teachers, we are part of the solution. We can help change this. Let's think of how. Here are some important actions we must take in the classroom if we want more critical students. The first one, to encourage questioning. We must encourage students to ask questions, to challenge assumptions, to explore alternative viewpoints. I hope you have seen Cecilia's talk yesterday, and that idea of being ready for anything can be applied to any classroom setting. As teachers, we must encourage students to ask questions, and we must be ready to answer them. Even if it means the lesson will take a detour and we won't finish what we had initially planned, we must give room for these questions. Questions need to be validated and valued. They're part of learning. And when we are talking about adults, especially, we also need to teach them that they can ask questions, because many of them are not used to. The second one, to provide opportunities for problem-based learning. We should incorporate problem-solving activities and authentic scenarios into the curriculum in order to engage students in more authentic learning experiences. In addition to that, we should encourage collaborative problem-solving, collaborative reflection to promote critical thinking. A classroom is a microcosm of society, and then collaboration is essential. The third one, to analyze real-world issues in the classroom. We can use current events, we can use case studies to teach students how to apply critical thinking to real-world situations. In my advanced conversation groups, which is aimed at EFL teachers, we do exactly that each week. I bring current events and I propose we reflect upon them, analyzing different perspectives, different points of view, and then hopefully challenging our own biases. So instead of a general lesson about traveling, why not bring to the classroom an article written by a person who hates traveling? And then discuss their opinions. Instead of a general lesson about the environment, that classic lesson we have in every course book that talks about animal extinction, why not bring to the classroom a video discussing climate migration, which is what we are seeing happen now in Rio Grande do Sul? Instead of a classic lesson on family, why not bring to the classroom divorce rates? And to bring to the classroom more diverse family settings, because this is the real world we live in. Next, we need to teach them metacognitive strategies. We should teach students to reflect on their own thinking processes, to monitor their comprehension, to regulate their learning strategies. We should also encourage them to self-assess and to reflect upon whatever they're saying. Another important thing, to emphasize process over product. This is my favorite. And I'm not talking about writing here, or I'm not only talking about writing here. Most of our adult students, they come from an educational background of rote memorization, an educational background of regurgitation of information. I come from this background. So it is important that we practice in the classroom the process of analysis, the process of asking questions. Many students need to learn and to explore different approaches, consider multiple perspectives, justify their reasoning. And finally, we must provide constant constructive feedback. Offering constructive feedback, one that encourages students to reflect on their thinking, revise their work, improve their skills, is of utmost importance. They need to be taught that the process of thinking, rather than just the correctness of the final answer and the grade, this is what will take them where they want to get: the process, not the product. To be more graphic, here are some issues that I have brought to my classroom to encourage adult students, in my case, EFL teachers, to think deeper and more critically. The first one, the economics of thinness. This was a lesson based on an article from The Economist that was talking about how thinner people have higher salaries. The smartphone invasion was a lesson about a village in France who banned the use of cell phones in public spaces. And this happened 2 months ago. Homelessness Unveiled was a lesson about an experiment in Canada in which homeless people were given a considerable amount of money monthly, and a discussion of whether they ended up spending the money on drugs and alcohol or not. The internet, who protects the one protecting us, was a lesson based on the news that Meta hires their moderators from countries in Africa and then do not pay for health insurance. And these people are now suing for mental health services. Is minimalism for everyone? Was a lesson based on an opinion piece written by a woman that claims that minimalism is a luxury only the rich can afford. Are drugs a racial issue? This was a lesson based on the discussion of whether the criminalization of drugs might be a strategy to criminalize Black people. And there are many more. I've been teaching these lessons for the past 10 years. And many students find them insightful, thought-provoking. Many students who are preparing for exams join these groups so they can put these competences into practice. I will finish my talk with a quote from the Medium website, and I'll make these my words. By nurturing this skill in educational settings, we equip students with the tools they need to become informed, adaptable, responsible citizens. As educators, we should all recognize the importance of critical thinking and strive to integrate it into every facet of education. The same way that most people enjoy traveling for the experience of getting in touch with what is different, I am sure that most students enjoy thinking once they understand how powerful thinking can be. Thinking can also take us far, right? So let's give them this chance. So thank you for being here. If you need help, if you need references, ideas, you can reach me at Instagram or in my email address. And my very final request is that you teachers do not lose hope. Stay curious. Teach curiosity. Stay critical. And teach students how to be critical. My slides will be available. Edu will send them to that link. And all the references I have used are linked in the presentation. Thank you very much.
Wow. What an insightful session, Gabi.
Thank you.
I'm so glad we had this session before our panel a bit later today. I'm so glad we did because there's plenty to talk about.